when we're submitted to God and walking in obedience, what can He accomplish through us? Welcome to Dream Small, where we believe God does big things through the small and everyday faithfulness of His people. I'm Jason.
And I'm Whitney. We're a family of 8 who's fostered, adopted, and stumbled our way through learning that small, everyday choices can change lives.
In a world that tells you to chase big, we dare you to dream small.
Because you know what? It's not about chasing fame. It's about choosing faithfulness.
Welcome back to the podcast. I got good news, maybe some bad news. I'm doing it solo today. Whitney, Mama Bear, is not feeling great. It's Sunday night and we haven't recorded a show yet, so I'm going to be flying solo on this one. So sorry about your luck if you were enjoying her more than me. Stick with it. Please don't give up on me. Not quite yet, anyway. I'm sitting here in the middle of a high wind advisory here in central Indiana, and we're supposed to get storms tonight. So if all of a sudden you hear me fly away, it's been fun. Today, I'm going to spend some time reviewing what Whitney and I had the pleasure and the blessing to attend on Saturday. We attended what is called the Every Child Symposium here in central Indiana. It's put on by an organization called Hands of Hope, and it is basically a one-day conference for foster parents, kinship parents, adoptive parents in a Christian environment. It was wonderful. We got to attend. We got to listen to a bunch of speakers. I got to speak on a panel. It was wonderful to get together in that type of environment. One of the best parts of attending a conference like that is you realize you're not alone. You get to go sit down with a bunch of people that are like you, that have the unique experiences you have, that have the unique struggles, and just connect with folks. You just are surrounded by people who have the same things as you, and it can be really, really encouraging. Now, getting to central Indiana might not be a possibility for you, but I would encourage you, wherever you're at, find a conference like that and try to attend. It is a great day of refreshment, and if you're like us, it also counts towards some billable training hours that we have to do every year as foster parents. So there you go. You get to get your bucket filled, and you get to get some training hours. Going there, honestly, I had really low expectations of what to expect. I just need hours. Our license is up in like 6 weeks, and I have to have 16 training hours, I think, and I have like 2. So just going and able to get some hours so that hopefully they don't take away our foster care license was the most important thing to me. But I walked away from that thing really encouraged. There was a couple keynotes that opened the day and 3 breakout sessions. And every single part of the day, I learned something. I was able to glean something that would help me be a better foster dad, a better husband, a better dad. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the time today, just kind of review the conference and share some of the things I learned from some of the other incredibly awesome people I got to listen to. Number one, the day started with Josh Cortez. He's a pastor at a church in the north side of Indianapolis. Gave a really encouraging message that was centered around the idea of the wilderness is a place of formation. He's preached from Genesis, I believe it was Genesis 16, talking about the wilderness and how us as foster parents, we're in the wilderness a lot. Wilderness meaning isolation, not sure what's coming or going, a time of trial is what he meant by wilderness. He went on to say, it is very important to realize that the wilderness, every time in the Bible, you hear about people going to the wilderness. I'm going to primarily point out Jesus. He spent 40 days fasting in the wilderness before he started his official ministry. It was a place of formation. So when you're going through the wilderness, use it as an opportunity to form, to strengthen, whatever it is. We have been through lots of wildernesses. Wildernessen? What's a plural of wilderness? I don't know. Foster care in and of itself is a wilderness. Your wife getting diagnosed with a rare form of thyroid cancer. Wilderness. Spending days, weeks in a hospital with a kiddo who is not yours. That's a wilderness. How can you form, how can you strengthen, how can you grow to be more like Jesus during those times? And to be clear, those times will come. Who knows what it'll look like for you, but those times will come 100% every single time. Okay, that was Josh. Great kickoff to the Symposium, sorry, lost the word. Great kickoff to it. Really good start. Just being able to be heard and feel seen in that way was fantastic. Then we moved on to a speaker. Her name is Beth Guckenberger. Whitney has told me about her before, but I've never listened or read her stuff. She was fantastic. She blends Southern charm with, she's been a missionary. Anyway, she just shared a story of all kinds of stuff. But what really, really, really stuck out to me, she had 5 chairs lined up next to each other. It was like looking, if people were sitting in there, they would have been looking straight out the audience. So, and she talked about Rahab sitting in the first chair. If you're familiar with your Bible and the story of Rahab, she was a prostitute, but she allowed the spies at Jericho to come in so that they could take the city. She joked, thousands of years later, she's still known as a prostitute, despite the fact she turned her life around. Anyway, it walks through the genealogy from the first chair of Rahab to Boaz, to Obed, to Jesse. And I looked at Whitney when she mentioned Jesse. I was like, you know who's next, don't you? She's like, no. You know your Bible. Who comes after Jesse? King David. And she was just highlighted the fact that for a lot of the kids we care for, they might be in that second seat, right? The first person they've had that walked with God is you, and what a responsibility that is, and how look what it happens over generations of walking with the Lord. It was just such a powerful, powerful, powerful image. What chair are you in? I would ask you right now. What chair are you sitting in your family? Are you a first chair, third chair, fifth chair? She mentioned what a big responsibility that fifth chair is. If you come from a family of folks who've walked with God forever, you can get complacent, and she didn't say lazy. I'm going to say lazy. You get complacent and lazy in your faith and take it for granted. Usually when you're beginning of those walks towards those other chairs, it's not quite that way. It was such a good image. She shared a couple quotes I'm going to share with you guys now. Accept assignments that outsize you. Accept assignments that outsize you. And I can't say, when you do that, you trust God. So a couple examples from Whitney and I's walk in foster care. I think the first yes for anybody in their foster care journey is a assignment that outsizes you. It's overwhelming. It's scary. Holy crap, I'm bringing in a kid I don't know into my home. What is going to happen? That is an assignment that outsizes you. That first yes for all of us is undoubtedly an assignment that outsizes us. And along our journey, I think it was, adding a kid, adding a different age group, saying yes to a kiddo a week and a half before Whitney leaves for cancer treatments, buying a giant van that we've named Hank because we have too many kids. All those assignments have outsized us and have caused us to grow and lean into God and trust God. Another quote she said was, don't estimate. Let me start all over. Another quote she said was, don't underestimate what God can do with a submitted vessel. That's you. That's me. When we're submitted to God and walking in obedience, what can He accomplish through us? It's pretty powerful if you think about it. What can God do through you? What yes is God waiting for you to say? For Whitney and I walking in foster care, the first yes just took forever. It was just us saying yes and actually becoming the journey of being a foster parent. What took us so long? Why were we waiting? All the things, right? That was Beth Guckenberger. I would highly recommend you look her up if you have parented kids from challenging places or foster care or just want to be encouraged and laugh at the same time. All right, before I move on to the next one, I'm going to ask a big favor here. If you're listening, if you could like whatever platform you listen to us, like it, review it, and share it, most importantly. It was a really neat experience at the conference. We were walking out. A sweet gal came up to Whitney and she goes, "Are you Whitney?" "Yeah." "I love your podcast." And come to find out, she found it through somebody posted it on a website saying we were a different resource. It was just really cool. And she also said how much the podcast had helped her because she's getting ready to become a foster parent. So you never know who could benefit from you sharing our podcast. Please do so for us. Do it for us. Do it for Whitney. Do it for the kids. Please share. All right. A lot of times these conferences are structured. You have an opening, you have an ending. In the middle, you have some breakout sessions. So the first breakout session Whitney and I attended in the morning was a panel of 3 kids. Well, they weren't kids. They were younger. 2 were young adults and one was like 33 or something. Adults who had been adopted, who had been in foster care and been adopted. It was a really neat conversation. I mean, there's not a lot to share from it because it was just very conversational. One thing I would share, there was a young man. Sorry, I said when I talked at my panel, I said there was a young man. He's not a young man. He's 34 or 35 now. He has his own family. He aged out of the foster care system. He was in foster care, I think he said, over 10 years. And he finally told the judge, hey, look, I just want to age out. I'm tired of going from home to home and nobody adopting me. I just want to age out. First, how tragic that some poor kid bounced around between 8, 9, 10 homes and finally said, you know what? Just let me age out. I'm tired of all this heartbreak and whatever else he was going through. Just let me age out of the system. He did. Cool story, though. He shared he had a caseworker that worked with him a lot and ended up adopting him as an adult. I never knew that was a thing. It was really neat to learn about that. But this caseworker followed him throughout his journey and adopted him as an adult. And now he is a young 30s guy, married with a kid, and is now also a caseworker for DCS. He shared that at some point in his terrible journey, he had to go to JDC, Juvenile Detention Center, not because he did anything wrong, but because there were no foster homes available for him. No foster homes available, so a young man, a teenager, had to go to JDC. Can you imagine that? So my biggest takeaway from that was, holy crap, we got to do a better job of getting people equipped and saying yes to being foster parents. There's no world that I believe there was a need like that and people not called to answer it. Let me look through my notes to see if there's anything else super interesting from that one. It was just neat to listen to those people talk. They shared their journeys, their stories, how a friend of ours, Deidre, she was on the podcast a couple times ago. We interviewed her. Her daughter was on it, did a wonderful job. And one of the questions what they asked her was how balancing your adoptive family between your bio family, did it hurt your new family's feelings and what are the right words? And it was just really neat to listen to her talk. Brielle was another panelist. She was adopted at 8 weeks old, baby, so she's known no different, and she met her bio family late in life. It's just a lot of dynamics people don't go through or understand or even think about unless you live in the world of foster care, which was really cool about that conference because that's what the world was. It was our world of foster care and adoption, where you can say certain things and people know exactly what you mean. You can talk about TBRI and trauma and people don't look at you cross-eyed and wonder what the crap you're talking about. It was really refreshing. So that was really cool. And then we had lunch, delicious Mexican catered lunch. And then after that, I was on a panel with 2 other gals that we were the foster parent panel, I guess. Whitney was supposed to be on it, and she graciously gave her spot to me because she felt like there needed to be some testosterone on the panel, some guys. So I was the one that got to be on it. It was really neat. Had some really good questions. One of the questions that was asked was, how do you balance? Me and the other 2 and all of us who are in this world all laugh, right? There's no such thing as balance. Balance is a myth. We all know that. But Mariah, one of my panelists, she shared a metaphor. It's the best metaphor I've ever heard for this. And she said, I don't balance, I juggle. Okay, I got that. But some of the balls I'm juggling are glass, and some of them are rubber. If you drop the glass ones, they break and fall apart and can't be fixed. But if you drop a rubber one, guess what happens to that one? It just bounces right back up to you. And I thought that was just stinking perfect for what we do as foster parents. We have so much going on. You have therapists, you have caseworkers, you have appointments, you have all of that. And you have to figure out what is the most important things. I shared the jump off what she said. I listened to a book once by a guy named John Acuff, and he said, pick what you're going to suck at. And he called it strategic incompetence. Figure out what you're not going to be good at and be not good at it. And that's okay. When you're in this role, especially I'm going to, brag on Whitney. She does a phenomenal job trying to ensure everything gets done and gets done well and gets done right. Sometimes things are just going to not happen. Maybe it's a piece of paperwork that we all know is not that important for an agency. Maybe it's a phone call with I don't know who. Sorry, that's not happening. If you have a medically fragile kid in your care, meeting a doctor's appointment, getting them to the doctor when they need to be there, that's a glass ball. You don't drop that. Some of the glass balls through our journey, I would say, when Leah was little, she was really unhealthy. So anything medical related to her was a glass ball. That's all we cared about. Now, being with an agency, we have a lot of paperwork to do every month. And, getting that done on time, sorry, Josiah White, sorry, Paige, is just not a priority. We'll get it done when we can, but it's going to bounce right back to us if we don't hit that deadline. Trying to think of some other examples through our journey. What would be a glass ball? What would be a rubber ball? Court cases, certain court cases. You need to be there to advocate for your kid. You need to be there. You need to be there. Along with that, one of the best things we also said on the panel was, as a foster parent, you have to find your voice. You have to be willing to fight for the kids in your care. If for no other reason, there's a really good chance they don't have anybody else that will fight for them. So you need to fight for them. And I shared the example from our journey back in the middle of COVID's when Leah was still a foster kid. Her belly mommy was doing very sporadic visits, not consistent at all. And she was unhealthy. And one of the things that was unhealthy about her, she had something with one of her lungs. It never amounted to anything. I think she outgrew it or it wasn't a thing. But anyway, during COVID, if something was wrong with your lungs with COVID going around, that was a really scary thing to match together at the time. However, DCS was insisting that in-person visits happened during COVID, despite the fact in-person visits had not been consistent at all to that point. Mama Bear Whitney somehow had the telephone number of the state director of DCS and sent her a message. And wouldn't you know, the very next day, DCS changed their tune and said, hey, virtual visits will be good enough. Virtual visits with a toddler and a baby are stupid, but hey, whatever. A win's a win. We'll take it. We'll run with it, right? So that was the panel. Let me think if there's anything else we discussed on that panel that I think would be worth sharing with you all. I don't think so. So the panel was me. So they picked 3 foster parents that are also doing something else to help foster care. So I'm a foster parent, and what I'm doing is talking into this microphone. The girl that sat next to me, her name was Mariah. She is the foster care ministry director at a big church up on the northwest side of Indy called Traders Point. They do incredible work. She's also an adoptive parent of kids from a horrible situation. Her story to tell. We hope to have her on. And then also a gal named Bray Lynn, who is doing great work down at the State House in Indiana, trying to get some better laws passed to protect our kids. So it was really neat to sit next to those two. They were doing awesome stuff. I wish we could have recorded the whole thing and we could have shared it with you. Yeah, I think that's all for those from that panel. Basically, the key idea was, and I kind of close with this, hey, if you're feeling a nudge to be a foster parent, to get involved, just do it. There's not a perfect time. There's not a perfect answer. I share a lot. Romans 12:1, your life should be a living and holy sacrifice to God. You don't have to worry about meeting that charge if you're a foster parent. You've done it. So I challenge you to do it. Keep going. Get involved. And then we went to our last session. It was called, from a guy that leads a group called resilientcaregiver.org. It was really good. Him and his wife have raised kids from hard places, and they've developed training to help parents respond to crazy behaviors. Why is this kid acting this way for no reason? We're all having a nice car ride, and all of a sudden, as my 10 and 12-year-old would say, why is this kid crashing out for no discernible reason, right? They have trauma in their past. They have things we don't understand that they're dealing with. And he kind of walks you through that journey. One of the visuals he gave, so you're up in an airplane at 30,000 feet, flying. When that plane, banks, you can look down on the ground, and it looks really cool. It's a place in the world, your local airport that you've been around dozens of times. But that unique perspective from the sky is always cool to take in, I think. So when you zoom out of a kid's behavior, the 3 questions he challenged you to ask was, the first one, what has happened in the past? What is causing the kid to act this way? Then you ask, what is currently happening? Okay, what has happened? What is currently happening? Then what is about to happen? Why do big feelings happen? Ask those questions when you're in the midst of big feelings. What has happened? What is currently happening? And what will happen? We need to change. His big thing was we have to change our mindset from this is a bad kid to this is a kid who's been through a lot and is currently having not great behaviors. It's not a bad kid. And then once you have a kid crashing out, you as a parent we've all dealt with a tantruming kid. Is that the right vowel, tense, whatever? We've all had kids acting crazy in the middle of the grocery store, middle of the Walmart or the Meijer, and everybody's looking at you like, what is wrong with your kid, right? Step one, he shared, which for me, this was the best part of his training, learning how to, when a kid is having a crazy behavior, what should I do? Okay, step one, regulate yourself. If a kid is freaking out and is just spiraling, yelling at them and telling them what the consequences in the moment are not going to be helpful. You need to first take a deep breath, walk away, go for a walk, whatever it is you need to do to regulate yourself. You need to do that. Step number 2 is validate the emotions the child is expressing. Not the behavior, not the result of the emotions, but hey, what are your current emotions? What is happening? Okay, yes. So for example, when we were at this conference yesterday, apparently our amazing babysitter and her son came over. And the amazing babysitter was her. Her son came over a little bit later to play, and he accidentally broke one of Benny's 3D prints. Apparently, Benny responded not great. He was telling this adult teacher of his, I don't know who, but somebody has to pay me for this. This isn't right. He just felt like he was completely wrong. And when Whitney and I talked to him about it this morning, we reminded him, like, hey, buddy, you're perfectly allowed to feel upset that your toy was broke. That is a fair emotion. However, speaking to an adult rudely and disrespectfully is never okay, right? It was after the fact. We didn't have to self-regulate. We weren't here. But we were able to tell him, hey, your emotion of being upset, A-okay. However, you cannot choose to be rude, right? So, okay. Step 1, regulate yourself. Step 2, validate the emotions the child is expressing, and then investigate the behavior. Why? What is causing them to do this? The example they gave in there was a mom with a kid walking through the grocery store, could never make it through the grocery store without the kid having a tantrum. And it just was so challenging for them. And they figured out the kid, every time they walked by the home-scented candles, right, that really strong scented aisle, I think you probably have popping in your head right now in your local store. You know exactly where it's at because I didn't know this. Scent is the sense most closely tied to memory. But also, kids with sensory sensitivities can be set off by loud sounds, strong smells, weird textures, and that is what they determined was happening to this kid. They quit going by that aisle, and they said the behavior started to subside and reduce significantly. If you have a kid with challenging behaviors, with a traumatic past, you really need to investigate and slow down. This training, like I said, this was the best training. Most of our kids now have come to us when they were babies, but they're still going to have trauma. Little Leah came to us about 3 or 4 months old, and data shows that kids that have their needs met their first 2 months of their life the way they should be, which means held, fed, loved, all those things. First 2 months of their life, if they don't get those needs met the rest of their life, they do better than a kid who didn't get those needs met their first 2 months of their life. And then the whole remaining, so all of the kids in our care are going to fall in that second bucket. They have trauma from in utero and just teeny, tiny little babies. Step 4 of the behavior thing is help the kid re-regulate. So you've regulated yourself, you've validated emotions, you've investigated, and then you're going to help the kid regulate themselves. Get them calmed down. Some kids, it takes a big hug, maybe a walk. Maybe some kids need like sensory input whether it's a heavy blanket. I don't know what it means for your kid. It means something different for every kid. Give them that sensory input to help them calm down. I think that's all for that training. And last analogy from his training, which I think is really good. You have seen a speedboat or been on a speedboat, hopefully. I don't think you've probably been on an aircraft carrier. Maybe you've seen one. An aircraft carrier takes a whole lot longer to turn than a speedboat. The behaviors our kids are having from traumatic backgrounds, it's going to be more like an aircraft carrier than a speedboat. Once again, I'm going to use Leah girl as an example. Her behaviors are getting better, but man, has it been a long and tiresome journey. And they're still not great all the time, right? She's also a kid, so kids aren't going to act crazy. But just remember, helping our kids develop the skills to respond appropriately to situations is a journey of an aircraft carrier, not a speedboat. So that was it from that training. And then the conference ended really in a neat way. I'll say Whitney really enjoyed it. I get why they do it. It's just not my thing. They gave everybody a light. They darkened the room, kind of like they do at Christmas Eve, but we didn't have candles. We just had these little finger lights. And they read off a series of statements. And if you applied to you turned on your light, and the intent of the exercise was so that you could look around and see that you weren't alone. I started this off talking about being in the wilderness and feeling isolated. One of the goals of this conference was to remind all of us foster parents, you are not alone. You are not isolated. You have others that are journeying the same journey as you. And that exercise did that. One of the questions was, you have a child in your home who isn't biologically yours. You have a child in your home who hates living in your house and doesn't want to be there. They just walk through a series of questions. It was cool. And then at the end, you had a postcard where you were to write yourself a little note that they were going to mail to you sometime in the future. Like I said, that type of stuff's not my gig. So what Whitney and I did is she wrote me a letter and I wrote her a letter, which was much more fun. I would much rather write Whitney a letter than me. And that was the conference. I would encourage you to, if you're somewhere close to the state of Indiana, try to get to this conference. It's phenomenal. If you find Christian conferences that support foster kids or foster parents, get there. Get there. I can't tell you enough how encouraging it is just to go and be surrounded by people that speak your language, that live your world, where you're not the crazy person and everybody's looking at you like, why do you have so many kids? Everybody there has so many kids. Everybody there has kids that don't look like them. Everybody has kids that crash out in the parking lots and don't sleep at night and have multiple visits from different therapists and caseworkers and GALs. Find conferences like that. I would say at least twice a year, get to a conference like that on a Saturday afternoon. Now, I know it's hard because kids, right? We're in the kid business, and if you're going to go away, somebody has to stay with the kids. Find a conference, get to it. It's so encouraging, and you will be refreshed. You'll learn some stuff, and it's just a good time. If you've listened this far without Whitney being here, thank you for sticking with me. Would love to hear your guys' opinion on what you think of the solo episodes. Would you like to have one every once in a while drop of just me or just Whitney? I know we've been told a lot of the benefit of this podcast is our banter back and forth, so maybe you guys won't like a solo episode. Candidly, if Whitney does a solo episode, it won't really be solo because I'll have to do all the tech stuff because she has no idea how to do any of that anyway. So let me know. Let me and Whitney know if you want to every once in a while have a solo episode drop. And the intent would be in the future, I would focus on dad stuff and Whitney would do mom, wife stuff. And all right, guys, thanks for listening. Keep dreaming small.
Thank you for listening to the Dream Small podcast. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, please tap that follow button and leave us a review. It helps other people find my mom and dad's show. If you're on Spotify, please give my parents a follow and a 5-star rating. And wherever you listen, don't forget to share the show with a friend who needs a little encouragement today. You can also follow us on social media to stay in the loop. Instagram at Dream Small Podcast, Facebook Dream Small Podcast, Twitter or X at Dream Small Show. or email us anytime at dreamsmallpodcast@gmail.com. We love hearing from you. And remember, just dream small. See you next time.